So here's the Ford 2N, and I'm about ready to send Juice to her. She's going to be a cold start. I'll probably just run the starter a little bit, make sure I'm getting oil pressure before we go for the full send on it. But we're about ready to get there. We've got things going pretty well. But wanted to give everybody a little background on what I've actually done to it to get to this point. Initially, I brought it in here in November of 18 and knew we needed to do an overhaul on it. We had low compression in a couple of the cylinders, and the others weren't that great. I think a couple of valves were sticking probably after I got into it, and I have pictures of a lot of it, but I didn't video a lot of it either. But I brought it in, tore it down. I bought myself a parts washer, and we've been washing parts like mad, getting everything ready and put into place. But really the tear down was just going to be on the front end. The back end has its own various issues, but it's still functional. It has leaks back there. The lift wants to drop down. I'm hoping that's just a relief valve that would be repaired reasonably easily, probably, if that's all it was. My guess is it's more than just the relief valve in it, but it'll still lift stuff. It just can't keep it up there for very long after I shut it off. So anyway, and the clutch probably needs a replacement if I start opening things up. It still works, but you've got to go all the way down to get it to release. Anyway, we'll talk about what I've done to this so far. Really no plans to do anything else right now. But anyway, we got in there. We pulled all the piston sleeves out. Took the crank arms off. Looked at them, but we used the crank arms and caps that we had already. So we reused those. But we put new pistons and the 4-ring pistons in. The valves, I think this number 1 valve up front here, I think it was the intake, was pretty well shot, and it was stuck in there. So I think that was one of the issues. So we went in there and we had to Dremel tool the 1 valve out of there altogether. We replaced all the valves. We put new tappets in, the adjustable tappets. So we got all the valves, pistons, other things that we replaced while we were in there. I mean, we put new gaskets and seals where we took things apart. Again, I left the block on. I didn't take the block off at all. So I left the crank and the cam in there. Again, oil pressure seems to be fine in the oil system. So I didn't want to mess with that too much. The radiator, I am reusing the radiator. It never seemed to leak. It seemed to hold fluid. It's looking a little worse for wear, but I'm going to go ahead and hold it. I don't want to spend another $250 on this thing just yet. I've already spent probably too much, probably more than it's worth, but it's a handy little tractor to have around here. The replacement tractor I had for a number of months, since about June, my buddy had brought over a Farmall 460 that he had no place for at the moment, and so I got to use that, but that really wasn't as usable on our place here as this little utility tractor is going to be for pulling the shredder and the finish mower blade and our little people wagon. Let's see, what else did I replace? I kept the starter, didn't replace any of that. But I did get painted what I took apart, was my intent. So I did get some paint on things that I had taken apart. I did replace the drag links here for the steering, and I got those set up yesterday. Those were... I think the originals were still on it. They were in pretty rough shape. I think they're over here. But they were leaking grease all over the place and just making a general mess everywhere. So hopefully these will be a little bit better. I'm not sure I've installed them perfectly correctly, because they had they've got a grease cap on them, but there was also another cup that came over that that I don't think was supposed to be a spacer, but it looks like you need spacers to keep that cup tight up against there, because my taper isn't that deep in these arms. So I may have to look at that. I have put some spacers, just cut off some plastic spacers to get it in there. I hope that works for a while anyway. Otherwise I have to figure out something else to keep that cup up against there. Because it doesn't look like that plastic will last very long the way I use this. The other thing we did do, we put new plugs and wires on. So I did install new wires, and I replaced the points. Just got that all back going again. The generator I had replaced several years ago. The governor, I did inspect the governor. It was functioning okay. It does have some tiny flat spots I'm seeing on the balls, and so for the moment I left it. I figured I can get to that reasonably easy if I need to replace anything on that. But I did put a new gasket on there and make sure that was ready to go. Yeah, again, something else